So it's after break here. Hopefully you had a little time over break to maybe reset, get a breath, and you're ready to go. We've got 2 weeks left of classes and then a week of final exams here, well, final projects and stuff like that. So there's not that much time left here. So let's talk about what we're going to do in this class. So much of this time now is going to be focused on the project 3. And for project 3, we'll be doing and using AI to basically generate an app as best we can, what we might call vibe coding for an app. And we'll look at using like Firebase Studio to do that. Today, we'll do look at Unit 12, and we'll do this learning activity where we'll try to use Firebase Studio to create a Flutter app and see how that goes for that. And we'll try to recreate the weather app. One thing I kind of like to do is to take some previous apps we've done and try to see if vibe coding, if the AI can do the same thing there. And that's something to consider when you're working on project 3, is you could take one of the projects you've already done and see if AI can do that same project for that. So if you're looking for ideas there. Now, before we jump into this, I want to just walk through the final project a little bit here. I just posted the final project here. So it is broken down into 4 parts. It's overall worth 50 points here. I'm going to just go on in the description, which kind of lists the 4 parts. So we're going to start with a design, and we're going to use AI to help us with the design. Again, much of this is focused just to give you some experience using AI to see how it works and how that works. So we'll set up a design and create an initial prompt and start building here. We'll continue to build in 3.2, add features, and I'll require you to do what we call a pivot to change something in your project there. So you've got your design document, you're working on it, and at some point you want to pivot some part of it and say, oh, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to do this instead. So I require you to do some sort of pivot as part of 3.2. So hopefully then you'll get a project with a bunch of features, an app built. 3.3 is simply presenting it online. I mean, in-class students will present at the CIS showcase so again, that'll be here in these labs Monday at 4 o'clock. If you can't make it, let me know. But I expect all of the in-class students to be there. Online students, we have an option for you to record something and submit that. And then your final project is due, 3.4 is the final app, and a retrospective is due. The due date for that is Thursday of finals week. That's actually the date of our final exam. We don't have a final exam in this class, so the final app is due on that date here. Now, as far as features, I usually like to require you to do certain features or have a menu, and I want to leave this as open as possible, so I'm not requiring anything. So a couple things. You can decide what kind of environment you want to work with here. You can be working in our native Android Studio development with Java and Kotlin. You can be working in Flutter development, either in Android Studio or in Firebase Studio. Do Dart development and Flutter development. Or you can actually work with any of the JavaScript frameworks like React or Node and do that. If you're working on a web framework, we do want the website to be optimized for mobile apps. So it should look really nice on a phone, and we should be able to see it on and use it on a phone easily. Similarly, you can choose what AI environment you want to use as best you can. And so I'm gonna be pushing Firebase Studio, and we'll be using that this week. So that's certainly one option. You can also just go back to Android Studio and use Gemini there. I would suggest maybe you update your Android Studio to get the newest AI or newest Gemini stuff in Android Studio and switch it to agentic mode so that it will do a bunch of coding for you. So you can try that out. Google also has this AI Studio where you can try. And one thing nice about Google Studio is that you can use Gemini 3 as a preview there, and you can develop apps. I haven't used AI Studio very much, and so I think it's mainly focused on web apps for that. I don't think you can do Flutter, but I'm not sure there. But again, because it has access to some of the newest models, I include that. Or you can just use Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini and just do the copy paste of code into your, Android Studio or something like that if you want it. But again, the goal here is to try to rely on AI as much as possible. I mean, it seems kind of counterintuitive in a course like this, but for this final project, we're just going to try to push AI as far as we can and see what we get for this. Two requirements is that you do have to be doing something with data. So you do need some sort of data model, whether or not you store that locally or in the cloud or how you store it. You do need a data model, and we do need to be moving data logs to keep that. And you do want to make sure you're implementing proper software architecture. So separation of concerns or, a model view presenter kind of model where, again, we don't want everything in one file there. And again, sometimes when you're working with AI, if you don't push it, it doesn't do very good software architecture. So we will want to maybe ask it and build on it, to make sure we're implementing a good expandable model for that. So again, you don't have to use Firebase. Like you don't have to do authentication if you don't want. You don't have to store things in Firebase. But again, you do have to store data somewhere, either locally or remotely for this stuff. Okay, so again, and in the project 3, we've got this. So like the first thing is due this Sunday, is 3.1 is due this Sunday. You need to work on a concept brief and write a 1 to 2 page document that describes this. But I want you, again, we're trying to use AI as much as possible here. So I want you to use AI to help you create this stuff and describe this information. Oops, I should be clicking on that for this. And then once you kind of have that, do your initial prompt, figure out what environment you're going to do, and start creating an app and see how that initial build works with this. And then again, but the initial build and design document is due this Sunday. And so because of that, in Unit 12, we're doing this learning activity. There was an assignment, but I made it a bonus assignment because, again, you'll be working on the final project. So if you need some bonus points, you want to work on something else, you can use this. So this is just seeing if we can get Firebase, like Firebase authentication and Firestore with Flutter all built in Firestore stuff and submit that. So, but again, so assignment 12 is a bonus optional activity. We'll actually try some of that out possibly on Thursday. Okay, so first, let's talk a little bit about why we're doing this. I'm going to go to the learning resources and see this. So I don't know how much you read or watch or how much of your social media feeds are tied to AI and coding and that sort of stuff. But in my world, I see and read a lot of articles, a lot of videos, and a lot of stuff related to AI and coding. for this. And so I wanted to try to highlight some trends here. Here are some of the trends, I think. So one of it is what we're trying to do now is the main is vibe coding or AI first workflows, where we are not just writing code and then using AI as an assistant. We are using AI to drive much of the coding in some places for that. So there are more and more places that are looking to do that. So it's interesting, and I see this with AI somewhat. I was using AI to build this list and ask it to generate resources. And I left these in here. I almost deleted them, but this is typical of AI currently with the current models. Again, these are not the most advanced models, is that these articles are good and somewhat related, but they really don't get to this that we're really vibe coding sort of stuff. So I don't know. You can read these articles. Certainly, if you haven't been reading about some of the abilities of especially Claude. Claude is, I haven't used it, but everything I read and all the reviews and from developers say Claude is a really good coding environment. Has anyone used Claude for coding?
I have, yeah.
What is your opinion? Is it more useful than some of the other ones?
I found it's really good for like more front end components and stuff like that.
More front end,
visual,
and visual design sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So, and again, with all these things, Claude has different levels, different ones, and so, and I certainly notice a lot of difference between the poor AI, the free AI models, and the paid AI models in some of these ones. So, another thing is, and that's another thing we're doing is developers are increasingly using AI in multiple phases of this design process. One of the things if you're doing, even when you're developing software, the amount of time you actually spend coding is often not that much. You often are designing, figuring out how to integrate this feature into this stuff, what this does. And so you may not spend that much time in coding. You might be doing lots of other development work, design, testing, that sort of stuff. And so we are now seeing AI being used to address a lot of that stuff. Design, writing unit tests, just the whole process of what I would call DevOps, developing and coding this software. So there are more tools and stuff for that. I certainly am seeing this where AI tends to add a lot of technical debt to our process. If you are using AI a lot, it tends to just keep adding things, or to solve a problem, it's not really good. It'll just keep trying things. Like if it gets a bug or finds a problem, it'll just keep trying things and it'll finally succeed, but then it won't go back and delete all the failed attempts there. So a lot of times, like, it will say, oh, we need to do some error checking around this, or we need to do more error check, or we want to do this, or we want to try this, and it'll try in much more sophisticated things that are needed, parts of code to try to fix this error. And eventually it'll get to a point where it figures out the problem, but it doesn't go back and undo what it has been doing. And so it tends to, what I'd say, add more complexity than needed to this code for us. So introduces a fair amount of, again, these subtle bugs, security vulnerabilities, architecture problems here. With its current stuff, it really needs, I guess, what I would call some hard supervision to get it to do a good job. So the last, this democratization of software creation, we are now seeing, and again, that's why I wanted you to do this, people who are just not train software developers developing apps and stuff like that. So it might be a company, it might be an accounting person who's, what we call content expert on their system, and they will, again, we've seen this before where with spreadsheets or stuff like that, all of a sudden we allow, there was a point where no, you couldn't get data and put it in a spreadsheet because all the data was behind software and in a database. And so only software developers could write SQL queries and get data, that sort of stuff. And then at some point, we now allow lots of people in a company to pull data from repositories and look at it in spreadsheets and stuff like that. And I think this is basically saying the same thing, is that a lot of these places might be starting to create apps or other or web or dashboards or web interfaces or stuff like that for this stuff. So all right. And again, one of the reasons I'm having you look at this is it really seems to be altering hiring trends. There's a lot of talk about, should you even be going into software? Are there going to be jobs out there? We've certainly seen a decrease in entry-level jobs and internships in the last 2 or 3 years. Largely, I believe, driven by companies using AI to make software developers more productive there. And so they don't need to be hiring as many. So I wanted you to get some experience with that to see there and see if you can justify this and what you see. So once you get in the industry, how you see AI altering things. So, okay, let's go and try this out here. So again, I'm going to go, oops, I don't want the project. I'm going to go back to unit 12 here, go to Firebase Studio. And again, we're going to try to create this weather app here that we've done before here. So we know we have an API key. We know what we're going to use the open weather app there, and we're going to pull the weather forecast down. So we have some of that already set. So I'm going to open up Firebase Studio. I'm going to open up now. I don't want to just do an app here because that's going to create a website. So I want to do this in Flutter and stuff. So there are a bunch of frameworks down here. So Python, Flask, Java, .NET, and Flutter. So I'm going to click on this Flutter icon down here for this one because I want to see if I can build a Flutter app with this. So I'm going to click on Flutter. It's going to bring me into a new special workplace for Flutter and give me an app name. So weather forecast in class. Make my name a little, I'm just going to call it weather in class. I've already done this a couple times, so I want to differentiate my other weather attempts with this one. So, okay, so I've got that. I'm going to hit create. So again, I've run Firebase Studio, but in Firebase Studio, we've just haven't started with a prompt. We've gone to this Flutter area first and opened up that framework. So now I'm in this framework. Oh, interesting. I've reached my limit of Flutter apps. So I'm going to delete this one. Apparently you can only have 3 Flutter apps. So at the current free model. So keep that in mind. So now it's going to set up this environment and run it. Now it will, once it gets into Flutter, it will, again, Flutter runs both on the web and on phones. So it'll actually bring up an Android phone emulator and a website emulator, just like we saw when we were running Android Studio and doing Flutter apps there. But this is all will be done in the browser for this. And so what it'll initially do is just build the standard Flutter Hello World app that we always see there. So it'll set up the Hello World app. Remember that one has a little counter and you can click on the counter to increment stuff for this. Okay, yeah, it's just giving me some warning that it's using some Google Analytics stuff here for this stuff. I'm going to make the Gemini window a little bigger over here. And again, this is looking similar to the code view with Android Studio in that I have my toolbar on the left side. I have my file explorers here, my search, my source control. So again, I can push this to GitHub. It needs access to Google Cloud. I want to grant it access to Google Cloud. You might have to create a Google Cloud project for this. I have a number of Google projects for that I've created, so I'm not sure how that'll work. So let me know if this pops up and if you can just create a new project or if you have a project out there. So I'm just going to click one of my projects and do that. And again, so there are these different tools on the left. The settings is down here for that. And then my Gemini, my command prompt is over here. I'm going to switch over to the web view because I think that'll actually boot up a little faster here because Android has to start up a whole Android emulator here. And this is our Flutter. Again, this should look very similar to our normal stuff where, again, we have a plus and we can add information to this. So we're going to modify this app, this Flutter app, to try to do the stuff. And again, I'm actually going to just maybe go over and take some of the details from here. So I'm just going to copy some of this information. And just copy that into this Gemini prompt. And rather than saying step here, I'll say create. Oh, maybe I'll leave that as step one. Okay, create a Flutter app in Firebase. Create a Flutter app that displays weather for a city here. I'm going to delete this sort of steps here. Create a Dart file to hold the weather class. We'll download the free 5-day weather forecast from this here. Now, one thing I don't see here is a way to switch, in normal thing, you can put in a prompt and ask it to update the prompt here. And so, but there isn't a way to do this. And so one thing I could do is I could take this and go into another AI agent, like let's say chat. And can you turn this text into a prompt for Firebase Studio to create a Flutter app? Here is my first draft. And it will create a new description of that stuff. So build a Flutter app, connect, open app requirements, project setup, weather model, app details, UI requirements, here. So I'm gonna copy that. Now, and I'm going to replace this with that prompt here. But I'm going to get rid of stuff. I think it always does too much error checking later on. So I'm going to delete the error checking sort of stuff. And again, one thing I notice is when I paste, this is so nicely formatted here, but when I paste it into here, this text, I lose all that formatting buttons. So that's one of the problems. So I'm going to delete this error handling and the documentation stuff for now and add that in later. So again, try a different one. Again, I'm trying this way because I've already tried, and this works. If you just take this text and paste it in there, that works pretty well too. I've done that. And I'm just trying this other prompt to see how it works. So now once we get going, we're wanting to do it now. It will try to create files and do things. And right now it's in agent mode, and we can but it's telling us what it wants to do and waiting for us to say, okay, so I'll create this file. Eventually, down here, you can switch it from the agentic mode to build with and not ask you questions for anything. But I didn't do that. And I actually like when I first get started to kind of see, especially when I'm walking you through this, what it's doing. It's creating a pub spec YAML file. So the blueprint file is where the specification is. That's just a markdown document, a human readable and computer readable document that kind of gives an overview of what we're creating here. Now it's doing some commands. We're going to run this terminal command. It'll run that terminal command here. We'll see we're creating a weather model file for the weather here. So in the original ones, we used a website. We grabbed the JSON from the weather data there and created a weather model from that using a website that would create like a Dart file for that. And here we're seeing if AI can just do that for us. So see if you can get this running. I'll let this run and go around and see if you need any help or how you're doing with this. Let me just pause this record. Now you can see the files, so you can open up the Explorer over here and it'll see. So this will be an actual Flutter. And again, since you're used to seeing Flutter, you know that the actual files are in lib there. So in our main.dart here, it's added a models. Mine added a models folder and put the weather data there. I'm seeing, yeah. And so I'm looking at that. So it's interesting. And then the main.dart, it's hopefully going to modify that. It added a providers folder, and that's probably going to be the code for doing the RESTful API call for this. Now, and again, it's Flutter, so it has both an Android and a web project here. And again, I should be able to see, let me move this. I should see this running in a web. And here's my Android phone emulator. So it's running a phone emulator here for this. So I noticed the app, the Android emulator often complains about the digital well-being app. That's some background app in Android. that it's just running. So it's actually running a full Android phone there. But now once I clear that, I should be able to run this app. And once we get a little bit further around, we should be able to change this to this. So now I'm beginning to see changes in main.dart where it's updating things. So at some point you may have to reload like the web page to see an updated version of this. So you might have to hit the reload button. Yeah, this isn't working. So now I have to check. I've created the initial structure of the app. So now it is looking like it wants to connect up to Firebase for this. Um, and I don't really want it to connect up to Firebase. I'm at Firebase Studio, but I don't, again, this Flutterfire config is what we want to do this. I'm going to ask it why it wants this. Again, I run into trouble whenever we're using like Flutter and then connecting to Firebase. So initially, I don't want to do that. So you're right. Yeah. So I asked it. You're right. We don't need Firebase for the initial version app. Just fetches and displays the weather. The app is perfectly functional without it. Yes. Okay. So now it'll do. So again, sometimes it'll get caught when I've done this before, it did not do that. And so again, that's one of my problems where I'm trying to teach this is these language models are very stochastic. They're random there. So if I run this and I run it again and then I rerun it, we'll all get slightly different results for this. So it'll be interesting to see how this works. And again, just like before, it'll modify the YAML file. Like it knows it needs to get the HTTP library, so it's added that in there. It was going to add the Firebase stuff, but it removed that. And again, just like in Android Studio, when we change the YAML file, we'd have to run this pubget. So it is running Flutter pubget for us to remove this. Now it says it's ready to run. Let's see if I run it here, if I see it there. You might have to ask it because it should be running a terminal command to do this demo. So I'm going to ask it, how do I run and test this new version? So down here in the terminal windows, it tends to open up a terminal window, and then it'll often say, press any key to close it. I can close those terminal windows if I want. Sometimes I've seen problems with it, so how to use it. So again, this is one thing I am seeing sometimes with Gemini here is that this Gemini doesn't seem to know that much about where we're at. So it is just, the question I'm asking it, and it is just trying to do some tests or build some common files. Before it just ran this and executed this fine. So it seems to be a little confused about what it's doing. So I'm just going to let it update this. Uh, and again, it is, but I don't think this is running the right thing. It is mocking, mock Tito is a unit test environment that it could mock out certain things, but it should be able to do everything. It's just connecting up to a weather API here. So I may have to, I'm just letting it go in class here to see. So it's running a unit test here, it looks like, and setting up a unit test for this. I don't think it needs to do, but we'll let it try. So now it's running a Dart command, a Dart run there. And I think that's what it should have done initially is run that so that I think that will update these web apps here. So let me see if I can. So, and I'm going to leave that running here. Oops. Oh, here. Okay, Flutter tests. Let's see if that. So now again, it is running the test, not the actual app for this. So I'm going to try reloading this web app too. So again, it's running its test and it's getting errors. So we'll let it fix those errors and see if that helps. So it's trying to fix some errors in main.dart. How did you do? Are you able to have anyone got this? Well, you've got it. That looks like a good app, right? It only works for the web so far? Okay, yeah. Um, sometimes getting the Android one to work requires like restarting or doing that for that. So and again, um, anyone else, where are you at? Johnny, you look like you're about the same place I'm at still.
Yeah, mine is just stuck running the run command.
Okay.
I've been doing it for a while. A couple things updated here.
Well, so yeah, it should, that's what it should run a run command and it should hang there. And then you should be able to go and refresh the window. But it's basically, that's what I wanted to actually get there. So if it's doing the run command and you refresh the window, that's what should be running your app, there.
Like this window?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So if it should be running a terminal command here, and it will hang like here. This one says Flutter test. I'm going to change this. Can we switch back to running the full app in the web window and not just the test. Right, yeah. Okay. And the phone, if you did a hard restart there, right? So, yeah, here there's a reload button, but if you like, Aaron was saying, if you click on that little arrow next to it, you can do a hard restart or for this and see how that goes. Okay, yeah, it says the app is running in the web preview window, so we'll see if that is true here. Okay, this is looking better. So enter city name, entering Duluth, and getting the weather. So it displayed the initial weather, but then it ran into some trouble here where we're having a bottom overflow. Every time in Flutter, you get this construction zone thing. That means that somehow the layout wasn't good. So, okay. The weather was displayed. Okay. But the UI gave a bottom overflowed. Can you fix the layout of the weather forecast? Sometimes you can actually look inside the code, and since you know you're now an expert on Dart and Flutter, you could ask it do more specific things like, you could talk about the maybe use a tile or a card to display each weather item or something like that rather than this. So okay, I'm going to go back here and well, we'll do that later. Okay. I'm going to switch this again. It's in agentic mode. I'm going to switch it to agentic auto run here. It will commit all local changes and I'll update. So now, once it's in auto mode, it should ask me for every update. It should just run. And again, I don't necessarily recommend that in all cases, but again, that's what we're trying to do here. Again, it'll do that on my next prompt. So on this prompt, I'm still having to run this stuff. And again, it's adding the Google fonts here for the display. And my experience is that it often fails to get the Google fonts. I generally ask it to switch to Material UI. I'm just more of a Material UI fan as far as design methods, but it's using Google fonts for that. So we'll see if it succeeds and what it does with that here. Okay, I'll go around and see how we're doing. If you're able to at least get some initial weather going for this. Let's see if I can get this to go. Pause this. Okay. Oh, some people are asking about images and layouts and stuff, and it's interesting because some people come up with we should actually go around later on and just compare. There's a couple widely different layouts and views that it's creating of this. Here it's creating an assets folder and putting the images in here. I haven't told it about this yet, and my experience is that it's not very good at downloading these. I thought it would be able to download these files and include them. It made me do those manually. So you can see if it can, I'm just having it it's just creating these files. I don't even know what it'll be interesting to see. I don't know what it's generating, but it's generating these files now for me for this. The other thing is someone was asked about GitHub, and to push things, because again, eventually you're going to move it. So on the left menu, I'm in Explorer, so I can see this. But down here, the third one down, this is the GitHub, the source control page. So again, I have to type in the message, initial version still errors or something like that. And I'm going to commit and see, I'm going to commit and push that. It should ask me to log in to GitHub at this point. It's been saving them locally, I think. Yeah, so it's asking add a GitHub repo, provide a repository URL, or pick a repository source. I'm just going to say add a GitHub repo and sign in, continue. So I'm going to continue. I've got to do my two-factor authentication with GitHub. Let's see, where am I at? 904-811. Huh. That's weird because that's not the right link for I make. Let's see if maybe I have to go to GitHub now. The code displayed in the app or on the device you're signing into. Never. Huh. Okay, it's giving me a code there, and I'm going to paste that code there. Okay, I get it. And now I do my two-factor authentication. 878. Okay. So now hopefully I can push this to GitHub. I'm not quite sure why, if it's what's it asking here. Oh, see, it's going, yeah. It somehow went to the wrong GitHub repository. Interesting. Let me try. I'll have to look. So I don't know why it's in the past, it's always created a brand new GitHub repo for me here, but here it wanted me to connect and I didn't get it to create a new repo, it looks like. So I'll sort that out later here. So we'll see. Let's see how we're doing. So again, see if you can change the layout here, see how it will do as far as the display for it. You might want to bring up your weather app on your phone and see if you can duplicate kind of that sort of layout here. One thing it's going to do is it gets, we get, what do we get? Every 4 hours, we get 3 hour increments of the weather. So you can decide if you want to display every 3 hours or if you want to display just summary for what each day or what, the middle of the day or something like that. So. I'm trying to run this in the phone here to see how the phone version of it looks. Um, Again, we talked a little bit about kind of these technical debt or this complication stuff. My AI is just really focused on trying to test this and getting unit tests. I'm not really that interested in it, but it's building all this stuff and adding all this stuff to run tests. And I don't think it's setting up the test correctly here, but I'm just letting it go to kind of see what it does. Go back here and see if I can get this. So here's my weather app that's not very dark. So I'm going to see if I can update the UI for the Android for the app on Android, the white text is hard to see with the light background. You change this so the background is a darker blue. So one thing I've found with AI, and I don't know if you've seen the same thing, is that like sometimes when I get these errors, and again, it's still got this bottom overflow. Um, rather than asking it directly to fix that error, I'll ask it something about that error so it can build a little context. So I might say, what are some widgets that can be used to remove the bottom overflow air? Can you list out some of these widgets and when they are used? I've seen mixed results where when it can see errors and not for this. And so again, I don't think it can actually see this bottom overflow air. So I always find it interesting to see what errors it does, what it can fix easily and what it can't. Right now, I have this problem where the background is just bad. It's this light purple background with white. I can't see the text and I've been asking it numerous times to fix the background. I keep saying it does. I asked it to change the whole color scheme and it said it did. And none of this is working. I did a screenshot of it and gave it, and it said, oh, the reason you're getting that is because of some Android background stuff, and I'm running some web browser, so that's not great. So eventually I went into problems here, and there was an error, and I just gave it that error and told it to fix that error. It told me how to fix the error, but it didn't fix it. I said, then can you just fix it in here? So it should be fixing that. So now I'm going to, again, I think this all related to background. So again, it's interesting. And one thing we'll have you do with your final project is kind of reflect on where the AI gets stuck and why and how you might have got around it. Because uh, we see a wide variety of places where AI gets stuck in different places. So I might see this, you'll see something different, but you'll have some spot where AI will just get fixated and will not be able to solve some really simple thing for you. And so you want to try to use some debugging methods that you know to help AI. So like one of them I have is to, or I'm working on is look at the actual error message, copy the error message, and try to fix this. So I was having trouble with GitHub and it was pushing the wrong client. So I just asked it about it and it gave me pretty good directions. I never remember all the little GitHub commands and what they do, the Git commands. So again, it said we should run this, git init, and then I should go create a new GitHub repository. I did that and it said you'll get a URL from that, grab that URL and give it there. So I pasted that URL back in here, and then it said, okay, and then it did a number of these commands to, again, add this as a new remote to that, add everything in the project to that, commit, do an initial commit, and then push everything to that master, and then it was able to create and populate this GitHub repo for that. So if you get stuck with GitHub, you can ask it how it works or see how you go. Now let's see. So now, and everything now is committed. So for this project, all you have to do in this learning activity is push your, see how far you can get with this and try out different things and see if you can break it, see if you can try different things. Like one thing I want to try now is like, I want to like do, now I've picked a city, I want a better way of doing a city. So let's say if I were to pick a city that doesn't exist, or like where there are multiple cities out there, like if I just type in York, which York did it choose here? So I want to do something maybe where it gives me better information about the state or the country that this is in for this. So I might do that, or change the display. Maybe I just want one display a day or something like that. You can decide how you want this to work for it. So just play with this for a while, and then eventually just push it as you make changes and submit your link. Remember, you may, in GitHub, you may have to share this with me. So you might want to look and see if it's public here. So mine says public right here. So then I can just share this. If it's private, you have to go to settings, scroll down to the bottom and make it public. Or else add me as a collaborator. There you can also go to settings and add me as a collaborator so I can see it. But somehow I need to see it. I think by default it pushes these as public repos. So okay. How'd it go today, Musi? Did you get progress? I'm going to close this Zoom session. Let me know if you had any issues.